Mass of Christian burial. See the tribute to our foundress, Mother Angelica, as she's laid to rest. Reaction from Rome. How Mother Angelica is being remembered at the Vatican. World leaders converge on Washington, the politics surrounding today's nuclear summit.
He has no chance of winning enough delegates before the convention, so why is Governor John Kasich still on the campaign trail? I'm Jason Calvi. I'll have that story coming up.
And the fallout to Donald Trump's punishment comment about abortion. On EWTN News Nightly for April 1st, 2016. Today we say our final goodbye to our foundress and friend, Mother Mary Angelica. She was laid to rest in a mass of Christian burial just hours ago. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. It's been a week of a long tribute to Mother. On EWTN, Catherine Szeltner takes us to the ceremony in Alabama, where Mother Angelica was laid to rest.
In the same shrine she built, Mother Angelica is laid to rest. From Pope Francis's U.S. representative to familiar EWTN faces, mourners gathered in Hanceville, Alabama's Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament. Philadelphia's Archbishop Charles Chaput celebrated today's Mass.
We humbly beseech your mercy, O Lord, for your servant, Mother Mary Angelica.
The homilist is a priest who knew Mother well and how she never followed the expected path.
But God was always full of surprises when it came to Mother Angelica.
One of those surprises was the timing of her death. All the planned solemn prayers for Mother's last rites had to be scrapped because she died on Easter Sunday, a day of celebration. Father Joseph Mary Wolf pointed to Mother's tough love, what's been dubbed her yelling theology.
Sort of like throwing cold water at someone to get them to wake up.
And how no one was immune from it, including a top executive she debated on CNN's Larry King Live.
At one point she said, "Look, sweetheart." And if you ever heard those words, you knew you were in trouble.
But the focus of the homily and Mass stayed on Christ.
You cannot understand Mother Angelica without reference to the one that she loved with the passion of a bride, Jesus.
The Mass was invitation only. Public mourners crowded the shrine's piazza to watch outside, and countless others viewed the ceremony on TV or online. In the octave of Easter, today's burial Mass was an Alleluia for Mother Angelica's life.
May she rest in peace.
The Mass concluded with a procession of Mother's body through the shrine's piazza and into the crypt where she was laid to rest. Also buried in the crypt is Mother Angelica's own mother, May Francis, who joined the religious order later in life. Lauren.
Catherine, that's not an April Fool's joke. Her mother became a nun?
Yes, the same woman who protested her daughter becoming a cloister nun joined her in the convent. So in a way, Mother Angelica became a mother
to her mother.
To her own mother.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much for that beautiful tribute. At the same time as Mother's Mass in Hanceville, she was being remembered at a Mass in Rome. Joining us from Rome is Cardinal Pell of Australia, who celebrated that Mass. Cardinal, you gave a beautiful homily about Mother Angelica. What strikes you most about her as a person?
Mother Angelica had such a difficult start, and yet she did such wonderful things. I think she's a great encouragement to those who grew up in broken families. She was a woman of faith and courage, and eventually high technical competence with EWTN, had a worldwide audience. I remember coming once to Front Royal in Virginia and being recognized by the barber because I'd been on EWTN.
We know of her impact on the church in the United States. You're from Australia. How do you see her influence on a global scale?
I think it's been an extraordinary effect. It would be stronger in many other places other than Australia because we have a dispersed Catholic population. We had difficulties in bringing in EWTN, but in places like the Philippines and so many other countries, she's brought the word of God, the message of Christ so successfully. It was marvelous. Coming from Alabama, a worldwide audience, a little bit like Jesus coming from Bethlehem and Nazareth.
Thank you, Cardinal Pell, joining us from Rome.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A top North Korea official tells Reuters the country will pursue its nuclear and ballistic missile program, and it considers itself in a state of semi-war against South Korea. It comes as President Obama's nuclear terrorism summit continues here in Washington, D.C. Wyatt Goolsby joins us from outside the convention center where they are meeting. Wyatt.
Yeah, Lauren, security is tight here in the nation's capital. D.C. police have set up a barricade behind me and have blocked off roads leading to the Walter Washington Convention Center. That's where President Obama right now is chairing the last session of this week's nuclear talks.
Dozens of world leaders assembling for the nuclear summit face tough issues. They're trying to reduce nuclear stockpiles, improve security at nuclear facilities, and promote peaceful nuclear energy. This morning, President Obama touted the Iran deal as a sign the international community can work together to solve potential nuclear threats.
After nearly 2 years of intensive negotiations, backed by strong sanctions, the countries represented in this room achieved what decades of animosity and rhetoric did not.
However, there is still a sense of frustration over the slow pace of reducing nuclear stockpiles. Russia's decision not to attend is seen as a major hurdle to solving that problem. Another hurdle is North Korea, which vowed today to pursue its nuclear missile program in defiance of the U.S. and its allies.
Should it choose to undertake yet another provocation, it is certain to find itself facing even tougher sanctions.
President Obama hopes China can help with their recent agreement to sanction North Korea. Obama says China and the U.S. have significant differences, but they can still work together.
Drive a wedge between the Chinese people.
Some Republican lawmakers, like Chris Smith of New Jersey, say Obama should do more to pressure China on their human rights violations.
China is becoming the worst offender of sex trafficking in the world.
Smith and Chinese human rights advocates are hoping the issue won't be put on the back burner.
Recent terrorist attacks like the ones in Belgium, France, and Pakistan have loomed over this summit, attacks that will likely continue as talks, at least at the forefront of the U.S. and its allies' minds in the coming months. Lauren?
Wyatt, the president also met with leaders to talk about the threat of ISIS. What came out of that meeting?
Well, President Obama and other leaders talked about how they want to keep ISIS, how important it is to keep ISIS from acquiring radioactive material. They're worried, for example, that ISIS could create a dirty bomb. Obama made reference to the fact that ISIS has used mustard gas in the past in both Syria and Iraq, and they're worried they could try to do that again. Lauren?
Wyatt Goolsby, reporting from Washington, D.C. Thank you. Ohio Governor John Kasich is campaigning for president in Pennsylvania today. While he has no chance of capturing the 1,237 delegates needed to win the Republican nomination, his goal is to stop Donald Trump from reaching that magic number. Jason Calvi reports from Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Lauren, we're at an antique car museum where the governor held a town hall today. 71 Republican delegates are up for grabs in this state. The latest Franklin and Marshall College poll puts Donald Trump just 3 points ahead of Kasich. Kasich is looking to do well in this state where he was born. Far behind Cruz and Trump in the delegate count.
Well, I'm going to be the candidate, and the reason...
Kasich is banking on a brokered convention. He says no one will get enough delegates to win the nomination beforehand. He'll have to convince the delegates to support him. Aren't you worried that's going to upset a lot of these Trump voters, though?
There are going to be hurt feelings no matter what happens.
Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Charlie Dent previews the argument they'll make at a brokered convention, pointing to general election average of polls.
And the reason why we are here is to make sure that we, the Republican Party, nominate a candidate who is electable in the fall. There's no question that John Kasich is the only Republican left in the field who can and will beat Hillary Clinton.
In the year of the outsider candidate, John Kasich served 18 years in Congress. He says if he's not president, he'll get out of politics after his second term as governor.
And I'm not applying for sainthood, pope, to be pope or anything else. I just think you got to use the things you're given to really make the world a little better place.
The governor's actions backed up by his words, praying with teen Bryce Bayshore, who suffers from Asperger's syndrome.
A few feelings. The first one was my heart was racing. The next one was I felt light. The next one I felt happy.
That's the sweetness Governor Kasich hopes to leave behind in this place, known for its chocolate. In Hershey, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
GOP presidential candidate Donald Trump met with the Republican National Committee today. He's trying to pivot from controversial abortion comments he made earlier this week. He's now saying that his remarks were taken out of context and that doctors, not women, should be punished for performing abortions. Donald Trump all smiles despite being attacked from all sides after he said women should be punished if they have an illegal abortion.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
Seeing an opening, fellow Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz went on the attack.
I think it was just the latest confirmation that Donald has not thought seriously about the issues facing the country, and he's willing to say just about anything to try to get elected.
Trump campaign officials were quick to call his comments a slip-up. That didn't stop Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton from firing off a shot at Trump and the entire GOP party.
Donald Trump is showing us exactly who he is, and we should believe him. I'm always struck by the fact that these Republicans all want limited government, except when it comes to women's rights.
Despite the controversy, Trump is saying he is the one who will bring the Republican Party together. The next Republican primary is in Wisconsin on April 5th. The next Democratic primary will be in New York on April 19th. Joining me now is Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So Donald Trump's comments on abortion have set off an absolute firestorm. It's the Planned Parenthood super PAC launched an ad saying, we have too much to lose to let him win, vote for Hillary. Is this really the beginning of the end for Donald Trump?
That's been said a lot, but this is clearly, I think, his worst week, and it comes at a critical time when you have the anti-Trump forces mobilizing against him, and actually the Republican establishment getting behind Ted Cruz, of all people. They view him as a better shot. The reason why this was so bad is that he took heat from both the left and the right on those abortion comments, had to walk them back. So a very rough week for the Trump campaign.
Let's listen. Our Jason Calvi asked Governor Kasich today about Trump's comments. Let's take a listen to that.
What do you make of Donald Trump's comments?
I've already said what I have to say about it.
What kind of punishment should there be?
I think it was inappropriate. We'll move on from there.
I mean, he's come out with a little bit stronger language than that, but inappropriate, and that is one of his running mates, and I think that that's key to the rest of Republicans as well.
Yeah, and Kasich's argument is, if you look at the head-to-heads, it comes down to electability. Now, delegate-wise, of course, he can't get to the 1237 number, but head-to-head, his numbers against Hillary Clinton are very good, and that's why he's sticking around, even though, really, I mean, remember, he's only won one state, his home state.
Right, and he's in Pennsylvania, 71 delegates there, but he's not even up in that state, up by just a little bit. Let's move on. Donald Trump also, in that same infamous abortion interview, told Chris Matthews that he thinks that the nuclear option is on the table. Yeah. This is despite a 70-year-old U.S. policy of nuclear de-escalation.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of his, on abortion, his talking point was, well, I'm like Reagan with exceptions, okay? But then he got into trouble with this one. This one, he's been saying, I don't want to leave any option off the table. However, when you're talking about nuclear weapons, this is where he gets into trouble. And that's where the concern is from a lot of voters, is that, do we really want to have Donald Trump as president and his finger on the button? That, not as big as the abortion comments, but certainly did not help him either.
Let's move on to Clinton and Sanders. She keeps saying she is sick and tired of Bernie lying about her. Is there anything to that?
Well, Bernie's trump card basically is no pun intended, is the fundraising, and that he gets small donations and she gets big donations and a lot of donations from industry. But I think she's looking pretty good for the nomination. He got in her head a little bit on this, and that's what you try to do in politics. And certainly she has taken a lot of money from industry groups and industry corporations, officials. And the Clinton campaign says, well, look, he's taken some money in that area too. I just think Hillary's best defense in that is, look at my policies. Even though they've given me money, the fossil fuel industry, the pharmaceutical industry, here are my policies on X, Y, and Z. But I think she's got to be patient because Bernie Sanders is not going anywhere anytime soon. He's got a lot of money. She's in the lead. Just keep going.
Play the long game.
Play the long game.
That's
exactly.
right. Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Lauren.
Coming up, Supreme Court case. Will the justices protect the Little Sisters of the Poor? And an Army captain wins his religious freedom case, how he stands out from other members of the military.
Mother was not afraid to do what seemed ridiculous, and God certainly performed miracles for her. Her only fear was not to do God's will.
More of Father Joseph Mary Wolf's reflections on Mother Angelica from his homily for her Mass of Christian Burial today. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Severe weather continues to rip through the South. Several tornadoes were reported in Mississippi and Alabama Thursday evening. The twister that hit New Hope, Mississippi, uprooted trees and damaged roofs. No one was hurt. The National Weather Service is surveying the damage. Female soccer players are demanding equal pay for equal work. The U.S. women's national team has filed a lawsuit saying they earn between half and a quarter of what men take home. And according to a sports journalist, the women's team brings in $20 million of revenue more than the men's team per year. U.S. Soccer says it will negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement for the women's team at the end of the year. The Vatican says 2 former officials at a Vatican-owned children's hospital are being investigated. A prosecutor is looking into whether they improperly spent money on renovations to a penthouse apartment of Cardinal Tarcisco Bertone. The renovations cost nearly $500,000. Bertone says he paid for the renovations himself. The Vatican is pushing for more transparency as part of its financial reform. He wears a religious turban and beard. Now the U.S. Army says a Sikh Bronze Star medalist can continue to serve. The Army threatened to discharge Army Captain Simratpal Singh for wearing a beard for religious reasons. The Army decided last night to change its policy. The decision is as a result of a lawsuit brought by the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty. Singh is a West Point grad and Army Ranger. A major development this week as the Supreme Court asked for alternative briefs in the Zubik versus Burwell case. That's the case of the Little Sisters of the Poor brought against the government over the contraceptive mandate. Joining us now is James Capretta, who is a senior fellow with the Ethics and Public Policy Center. He focuses on healthcare. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So is this an unusual move for the Supreme Court?
Very unusual. My understanding is that this is not very typical for the Supreme Court to ask for a specific brief, going both to the government and the plaintiffs in the case, asking them to weigh in on an alternative solution.
Can this be interpreted as something positive for the Little Sisters of the Poor?
Possibly. I mean, it's really hard to interpret these kinds of things, but it looks to me, and like I think probably to many others, is that somebody on the court is trying to find a way out. They realize that the supposed solution the government has come up with really isn't an accommodation for Catholic groups like the Little Sisters, and therefore they're trying to find a third alternative.
So I know your bias in this case. You think that it's asking too much. It's not asking too much for the Little Sisters of the Poor to be able to have this exception. Why is that?
Well, look, the Little Sisters have been offering health coverage to their workers for decades. No one raised a big issue about this before. This became a sudden issue really in a political context, frankly, in 2012 and 13, where it suddenly became a cause célèbre to make every employer in the country, including those who have objections to it, to make free contraceptive available to all their employees without any consequence.
Under Obamacare.
Under Obamacare. And so, you know, it's pretty obvious to me that if we just allowed groups like the Little Sisters to opt out, there really wouldn't be widespread harm and damage. It would be going back to the way it had been for many, many years.
So what is specifically the solution in your mind?
I think the solution is to allow the Little Sisters and groups like that, other Catholic employers, to continue to offer health coverage that excludes the things that they find objectionable, morally objectionable, according to the Catholic Church. Allow them to do that. And then if the government wants to make other arrangements to allow people to access products and services that are not available in their insurance plans, they can find a third way to do that, working with pharmacies and doctors and others.
Without having the Little Sisters write down a sign on a piece of paper,
of course,
that they are not going to provide this insurance.
Exactly. That's the big problem with the government's supposed accommodation, which is not an accommodation. What it does is it says to the Little Sisters, if you offer health insurance, yes, it appears that these things aren't covered in your plan, but by offering it, an automatic thing will be triggered, and all of your employees will be covered anyway in a third-party arrangement. So the Little Sisters know in advance, before they offer the coverage, they can't possibly do this because it's going to trigger this thing. And so, you needed a real solution that allows them to act within their conscience rights. And then if the government really feels it's compelling to do something different, they can find another arrangement.
Very good. Thank you, James Capretta, Senior Fellow with the Ethics and Public Policy Center.
Thank you.
Up next, saying goodbye to Mother Angelica, how she's being remembered today. And Mother's lasting legacy, how she influenced the Latin Mass.
What was it that prompted the transformation of a garage into a television studio? Well, the divinity of Jesus must be upheld.
Father Joseph Mary Wolf says it was Christ who inspired all of Mother Angelica's actions. He delivered the homily for her Christian burial mass just a few hours ago. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Mother Angelica has often expressed her love for the Latin Mass. In her biography, she says, quote, "Latin was the perfect language for the Mass. It's the language of the Church, which allows us to pray a verbal prayer without distraction." We are joined by Daniela Pecic, the leading founder of Juventutem here in the nation's capital. It's an international group dedicated to making young adults holy through the Latin Mass. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mother Angelica said the Latin Mass was something that was near and dear to her heart. Has she helped this movement?
Yes, absolutely. Latin, of course, is the language of heaven. Mother Angelica herself is a transitional figure for us. She helped move the conversation back to saying that it's okay to give God the best that we can give him, and that really honor and worship are that important. The Mass really was at the center of her broadcast. She loved the Catholic Mass so much.
And there are some things that she's done to help spread the Latin Mass.
That's right, yeah. She used TV, which was the ultimate form of representing something, and we use YouTube and social media.
How?
Basically, we let other young adults know about all sorts of other masses that are happening in the area. We let them know about catechetical resources that they might need. We share anything that will help them become holier.
And what about priests?
Anything that we can do to link up a priest who wants to learn the extraordinary form with another priest who can teach him. We find donors who can provide missals, patens, maniples, that sort of thing. And then we also provide, when necessary, server trainings. We do
for altar servers.
Yeah, and also we promote chant workshops and things like that.
What's a chant workshop?
Learning how to sing the sacred chants of the Church, which are in a different sort of format than the typical music notation.
This is fascinating. Daniela Pecic, who is the founding member of Washington DC's Juventutem movement. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And it seems it's never too young to start saying Mass.
Beloved, I love you.
3-year-old Augustine announced that he wanted to say Mass himself after attending Easter Mass. The video has gone viral, receiving tens of thousands of views. He is the son of Brandon Vogt, who works for Bishop Robert Barron's Word on Fire website. This Sunday is Divine Mercy Sunday. The devotion teaches us that God is merciful and forgiving, so we must also show mercy. It's based on the writings of St. Faustina of Poland. St. John Paul II established Divine Mercy Sunday in 2000. The faithful are encouraged to go to confession within a few days of this Sunday's Mass. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Lauren Ashburn. We leave you tonight with another look at Mother Angelica's Mass of Christian burial. May she rest in peace. Good night, and God bless.